Hello and welcome to this rundown of abrasions and blunt force trauma. Because over the last week, since the last hearing in the Karen Reed case, Alpha, a lot of other things in his name, has been dogging me in every chat I have seen him in, talking to me about how abrasions can occur by blunt force trauma. And I agree. We talked about it. I have said it many, many, many times. Yes, blunt force trauma can split the skin. Hit me with a bottle in the head. There's not much fat underneath this big dome of mine. Well, inside, but not under the skin. It'll split nicely. It's done that more than once. But the problem is, Alpha, this is where the injuries are. I don't know if, well, I have these big meaty Baker arms, but it's a very, very elastic piece of skin. So it would need a lot of force to break the skin. And what are we talking about? We are, of course, talking about the picture that always get me demonetized. These are the so-called abrasions according to the ME. Abrasions is normally superficial injuries to the skin. In some cases, you can inflict enough blunt force trauma that you can have an abrasion in the dermis. That's the second layer of skin. But you can break the skin. But normally, you will see it will only be the first layer of the skin. But every time I show this picture, I say, to me, this is not caused by blunt force trauma. And the last week, that had made Alpha send me link after link that I should look at. And I did today because what else should you do on a Tuesday? So let's see what I found about abrasions because it's interesting what you can find on the internet. There's actually a lot of stuff out there. Most of it is pretty good. So let's see. This is from the U.S. Department of Justice Officer of Justice Program. Just so you can you can make a check on my sources later and tell me if I'm wrong or if I'm right, or maybe I'm misreading. English isn't my first language. Blunt force injuries from medico legal investigations of unaliving. And this is what they talk about. A sharp object cuts and divides the tissue as it penetrates, but a wound produced by blunt impact tears, shears, and crushes. And false collisions and blow with a blunt instrument such as a hammer, brick, bat, fist, or pipe typically result in blunt force injuries. Then this is the first part I really want you to look at, Alpha. Excessive bleeding into the adjacent soft tissue usually occurs. Yes, I'll give you some leeway. Not always, usually. That's most of the time. What does excessive bleeding into the adjacent soft tissue mean? Well, that means a black eye, for example. If you split my eyebrow, there'll probably be some, I'll get a black eye because of the bleeding in the adjacent tissue. And then the next thing, hemorrhages of similar magnitudes is practically never seen in the margins of cuts or stab wounds. So they tend to be clean because the bleeding will come from the wound. It won't bleed into the surrounding area because it's a point of impact more than an area of impact. Then you have three different types of um, blunt force trauma. And those are, let me just find them. You have a contusion, you have the abrasion, or you have a laceration. I thought if a laceration was the one mentioned in the ME's report, I could buy that one because a laceration is a tear produced by blunt trauma. The force and direction determines appearance, depth, and associated injuries such as fractures. Injuries caused by hammer blows and bottles are examples of lacerations. But what did the ME say? An abrasion is due to scraping of the skin with removal of its superficial layers. It is frequently difficult to distinguish between an abrasion sustained during life or from one sustained after death because the bleeding does not usually occur due to superficial nature of abrasion. Abrasions, like contusions, are often characteristically patterned. And that's a problem, at least for me. I know it's not for you because you're the one who brings it up and say I'm wrong. But do you claim that the injuries to the forearm is consistent with a scraping of the skin and the superficial layers of the skin? I'm not sure I'll buy that. But who am I? I'm a baker. I'm not a doctor. But what is blunt impact injuries? They result from direct contact of a blunt object with a body. A contusion results from the blunt impact of significant force to rupture capillaries underneath the skin surface while leaving the skin surface intact. It's not a contusion, we know that. While an abrasion results from scraping off of the superficial epidermis, that's the skin. Was that one? Contusions and abrasions may show distinct patterns which can be used to match a specific wound to a potential weapon or implement. For example, a contusion over the forehead with multiple parallel zigzag lines may be matched to the sole of a shoe collected at the crime scene. A laceration results of the blunt impact of significant force to tear the skin, leaving strands of subcutaneous tissue bridging the wound. Contusions and lacerations may also be present on internal organs. Blunt impact of significant force to a bone results in a fracture. This is also from the government, National Library of Medicine, just so you can check my sources. So again, lacerations is the one that breaks the skin. Abrasions is scrapes of the outer layer. But we can go back and look at, I'm just going to do this and do this. I'm sorry. It takes a little while. Is this consistent with the terminology I just read about abrasions? One, this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, this one clearly penetrates deep inside the skin. This one I'll give you is an abrasion. This one I can call an abrasion. But this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, and these three, to me, I don't know where the ME got the abrasion, but I don't know. I'm just a baker. But thank you so much for teaching me or asking me to study because what is lacking around all these wounds that are present up here. Yes, the reddening of the skin that could indicate significant force being applied to the skin in this area, but no bleeding in the skin in the blunt force trauma area. As stated in the government's papers, there should be, if this is blunt force trauma abrasions, there should be bleeding in the tissue surrounding the injuries. I'm not a doctor. I'm a baker. Alpha, I'll give you abrasions can stem from blunt force trauma, but this is not how abrasions is described in the medical literature. But I'm sure you'll be back hounding me with even more questions. But to the rest of you, make up your mind. If cuts are made with no bleeding in the surrounding tissues and laceration, abrasions, or contusions are made with bleeding in the surrounding tissue, what does this seem more like? I don't know. But to me, it doesn't seem like someone hit someone with a car.